Hey everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. Today I'm gonna show you how to model and light this cyberpunk inspired vending machine, and I really hope you will enjoy this one, and if you do, don't forget to leave that like, and if you're new around here and want to learn more, hit that subscribe. Now let's jump right into empty Blender file, and first of all I'm gonna select the light and the cube, press X and choose delete, we don't need them, and let's press Shift A and we'll add a plane. Now I will scale it up 2 times, so press S, then 2 and confirm. That should be enough for this small scale illustration. And let's press Ctrl Shift B and bevel the corners a little bit so we have some background there. And now let's press A and E to extrude downwards. Now let's press A and Shift N to recalculate the normals, and we can tab out. And let's press Shift A and we'll start our vending machine. So let's add another plane, tab into the edit mode, and let's scale it up a little bit. And then press S, then X, and scale it on X axis like this. Press G then Z to move it up slightly, and then E to extrude like this. Now let's subdivide the model a little bit, so let's press Ctrl R and create a loop cut right here near the bottom. And now let's press Ctrl R again and create one on the side there as well. And let's create one on top, so let's press Ctrl R again and create one here. Now let's press 3 for face select, select this face in the front, press I to inset and E to extrude inside. And now let's add some details. So first of all I will press 2 for edge select, alt click this edge on the side to select the whole loop. Now hold shift, select this edge as well, and let's press Ctrl B to bevel and reduce the number of cuts with the mouse wheel to only 1 to create a chamfered edge like that. And now let's select this one here, press Ctrl B and bevel it as well. Now let's alt click this loop right here, press Shift D and right click to release in place, and now press P and choose separate selection. That will separate it into a new object, so we can tab out, select that new object, and first of all let's duplicate it. So press Shift D, tab into the edit mode, press A and now extrude, so E then X on the X axis like this. Now press A to select all. First let's recalculate the normals, press Shift N and then Alt E and extrude along normals like this, and we can press S to scale evenly, just like this. And now again press A and Shift N to recalculate normals. I always do that when I'm extruding from a planar geometry. So now let's tab out and let's select the one we separated before right here, tab into the edit mode and just press A to select all and F to fill to create the face right there. Now we can tab out and let's add solidify modifiers. So go to modifiers, choose generate and solidify. If you feel like this is too fast for you or you don't understand some core concepts, make sure to check out my courses. I carefully designed them to take you from beginner skills through low poly illustration all the way to full character illustration, textured environments and much more. And I build the courses as creative projects, each with its own style. And every time there's a new technique or something needs explaining, we stop for a while and you get an in-depth explanation. But in the end, you still get a full project result. So if you're interested, please check out the link in the description. Now we can enable X-ray view so we can see the thickness a little bit better. And now let's go to the negative direction inside like this. And now we can disable the X-ray view and we can select this front face and press H to hide it so it doesn't get in the way. And now let's select the vending machine again, tab into the edit mode, and we can press 3 for face select, select this face down there and press Shift D then Z and duplicate it and move it up like this. And now press Shift R to repeat this few times. Now we'll need to space it out a little bit better. So first of all, let's select those 3 by holding Shift, press P and Enter to separate the selection, tab out, let's select them, tab back in and press A and E to extrude all of them like this. Now press 3, select the front faces by holding Shift, press G then X and move them inside a little bit. And now again press A, let's press 3 for a side view, press G then Z and move them down like this. And we can additionally press S then Z and scale them inside so it's better spaced. Okay, I really like this. So now we can tab out, let's Shift and right click to move the cursor here, let's press Shift A, add a plane, tab into the edit mode and press S to scale it down. Then R and Y and 90 to rotate 90 degrees, and we can press S then Z and scale it up. This will be kind of display or something, so let's tab out, press G then Y, I'll move it to the side a little bit, So we can overlap here a little bit and now tab into the edit mode, press E to extrude, I to inset, and E to extrude again. And now we can press P and separate the inside piece. Now let's tab out. Let's select both of those by holding Shift and press G then Z and move them up a little bit. Like this, because I want to add a keypad here. So let's Shift right click there. Let's press Shift A, add a plane, tab into the edit mode, press S to scale it down, R then Y and 90 again to rotate. And here let's press E to extrude. And now in the X-ray mode, let's select the back face, press X and delete it. We don't need it anymore. And let's select the front face, press Shift D to duplicate, right click to release in place. And now we'll press P and enter to separate again. Tab out, let's select that new face, tab back in, press A and S to scale it down. And now we can right click, choose subdivide and increase number of subdivisions to 2. And now let's press Ctrl B to create the bevel there. And we can control the number of cuts with the mouse wheel, so we only want one cut. Press X and delete faces. Now press A to select all and E to extrude. Let's hit period on a keyboard and switch to individual origins. You can do that right here as well. And now press S to scale it down. And I think we can go back a little bit, so press G then X and move it back. Now let's look from the front by pressing 1 and drag a selection like this, so we only select the faces in the back, press X and delete those. Tab out, and now let's create like an opening for a coin or card sweeper or something. So Shift and right click here to move the cursor. Let's press Shift A and we'll add a plane, tab into the edit mode and press S to scale it down, R then Y 90 again to rotate, and then S then Z to scale on the Z axis like this, E to extrude, I to inset, and E to extrude inside. Something like this should be enough. And now again, I'll press A and Shift N to recalculate. Tab out, let's disable the X-ray view and I'll move it down a little bit. So press G then Z and try to align it somewhere. But I think this looks okay so far. And now let's create an opening right here. So select vending machine, tab into the edit mode, select this part, press I to inset and E to extrude inside. And now I'll press 2 for edge select, select this edge, press G then X and move it inside like this. And now I'll just create those cans. So tab out, Shift right click here to move on the shelf. Let's press Shift A and we'll add a circle. Now I'll modify the vertices to something like 16. We don't need so many details. Tab into the edit mode, press S to scale it down, and then press F to fill and E to extrude like this. Now Ctrl R to create an edge here in the middle. Move it up. Let's press Ctrl B to bevel and Alt E and extrude along normals and extrude it inside. And again, since we created this from a circle, let's press A and Shift N to recalculate just in case. Now I'll tab out, press G then Y and move it to the side a little bit. And let's add an array modifier like this. Let's switch the factor to 0 and Y to 1.2. And let's increase the count to something like this. And we can make the whole thing smaller a little bit. Now let's look from the side here. Press Alt D, then Z, and move it down here. And now press Shift R to repeat the operation. And I think this will be enough because it will be behind the glass anyway. There will be some blurring. So I think this level of detail will be just enough. And now let's reset the cursor. So hold Shift S, snap cursor to world origin, and let's press Shift A, and we'll add a plane. Let's look from the top by pressing 7 on a numpad, enable X-ray view, tab into the edit mode, press S and scale it down and move it to the corner somewhere here. And now let's add a mirror modifier like here and enable Y-axis as well. And now we can look from the front and press E to extrude like this. And again, A and Shift N to recalculate. Now tab out, we can disable X-ray view. And now let's Shift and right click here. Let's press Shift A, we'll add a plane, tab into the edit mode, press R, then Y and 90 to rotate 90 degrees, confirm, press G, then Z and enter 1 because we want to move this exactly 1 meter. Let's confirm. And now we can tab out and scale it down and you will see it will scale according to our origin point like this and press Ctrl A and apply that scale. Now tap back in, select this edge, press E, then X and extrude. And now we can hold Shift, select these two edges additionally and press X and delete edges. Now with only these edges in place, we can press 1 for vertex select these two vertices and press Ctrl Shift B to create a bevel and increase number of cuts with the mouse wheel. All like this. Now tab out, right click and convert to curve. And in the curve settings, we can go to geometry section and increase the bevel depth here to create pipes like this. And we can press G then Y and move it to the side a little bit. And now let's tab in, select these two control points by holding Shift, hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it, tab out and let's press Shift A and we'll add plane. Now tap into the edit mode, press R then Y and 90 degrees. Let's confirm and let's press S then Z and scale it down like this, and then press S then Y and scale on the Y axis. Now I don't know exactly the proportions I will need here, so let's create the text first. So I will tab out, let's press Shift A and we'll add the text object. Let's press R then X and 90, and then R then Z and 90 degrees, and let's confirm. And now in the text settings, let's align this on center and middle. And I want to choose a different font here. So you can basically go to, for example, Google Fonts and download whatever font you like. Just make sure it's TTF format and it's not like a super new variable font version or something like that. Something that Blender can actually read and open just fine. And now we'll just hit open and you can locate your fonts. Here I'm using the monotone and import it. Tap into the edit mode, let's delete the text and let's enter something like fresh. And I think the proportions look just right. We can just make it smaller a little bit by pressing S. And now in the geometry section, let's extrude this tiny bit. All like this, that should be enough. And now let's press Shift D and duplicate this and Z to move it down. Now I want to change the font on the second one. So let me go back here and choose a different font. For example, here it's Pacifico. And I want to tab into the edit mode again. Let's delete this and let's enter air. So we're selling fresh air here, and we can move the whole thing up a little bit like this. And if we look from the side here, this is the camera angle I will want to do, and the pipes wouldn't be visible at all. And I like to break the symmetry sometimes. So let's move it to the side here by pressing G then Y. Then we can move this here and make it larger. And move it closer here. Yeah, I think this will look fine. So let's select this plane right here, tab into the edit mode, and let's press Ctrl Shift B to create the bevel. Confirm, and now press A and E to extrude this way. Now again A and Shift N to recalculate. And now I want to go for face select by pressing 3, select the front face, press Shift D to duplicate and right click to release. And again, I will press P and enter to separate this into a new object. So tab out, select that new object, tab back in. And I will select all by pressing A and then I to inset to create a rim like this. Now press X and delete faces and press A and extrude this by pressing E. Now again, A and Shift N to recalculate. And basically that's the sign here. Now I just want to move this towards the front a little bit and maybe higher up. Maybe a little bit back. We'll see how this works. Now I want to add bevels on this. So let's hide anything that doesn't need beveling. So that's the text. So press H to hide those pipes. Again, I'll press H to hide. And the rest of the objects might benefit from the bevel modifier. So let's press A to select all, hold Shift, select the vending machine. Let's go to modifiers. And I use this a lot in my tutorials and videos. If you have multiple objects selected, you can hold Alt key to change values for multiple objects, and it works with adding modifiers as well. So let's add the bevel modifier by holding Alt key. And now by holding Alt key, we can change the amount here and increase segments. Remember to hold the Alt key anytime you do something, and you will see it applies to all objects here. So let's enable harden normals here again by holding Alt and change this to arc, again holding Alt key. Now let's modify the beveling a little bit, right click and shade smooth, and we can press Alt H to unhide everything else. And here we can select those pipes, press Ctrl 1 to add subdivision surface, right click and shade smooth. And yeah, I think this is ready when it comes to modeling. We can just add some more background here. So let's press Shift S, snap cursor to world origin, and let's press Shift A, add a plane. Now let's switch snapping to vertex, press G then Z and snap it right down here. And now we can just press S and scale it up like that. And let's press 0 on a numpad for camera view. And now if you press N for the side panel in the view settings, you can enable camera to view. So you can use your viewport controls to position the camera just like this. And now let's go to output settings and switch to something like 1600 to 1200. And we can zoom in a little bit like this. And I think we could benefit from some cable right here. So let's shift right click, let's press Shift A, add a plane. I'll add a box or something here. So tap into the edit mode, press S to scale it down, then R and X and 90 to rotate 90 degrees. Let's extrude. And now I'll select this edge. And now 2 for edge select this edge right here, press Ctrl B, reduce the cuts with the mouse wheel and confirm. Now don't forget to disable this camera to view so you can freely move around and then go back to your camera. And now let's select this face right here, so press 3 and click. Now hold Shift S, snap cursor to select it, tab out. Now let's press Shift A and we'll add a plane, and now back into the edit mode, and we'll press M and merge at center. They'll merge all the vertices into one, so we can now press 1 for vertex select. So click to select the vertex, press E then Z and move down. Let's look from the front by pressing 1 on a numpad, and we can start extruding cable. Let's look from the camera. Here the cable can go like this a little bit. Like this. Okay, and into the sign, for example. Yeah, I think this will look nicely here from this angle. You can of course bring it closer a little bit if you want. Okay, tab out, right click and convert to curve and increase the bevel depth here. Press Ctrl 1 to add subdivision surface, right click and shade smooth. And I think this is too thick, so let's reduce the thickness there. And let's look from the camera, and I think this looks much more interesting now. And I think my camera bailed on me here, so sorry about that. Yeah, right now this will be all about materials and lighting, but first I want to create a cutout here, and for that we'll need a Bool tool modifier. And actually it's doable without it, of course, but it makes Boolean so much more easier. So make sure you go Edit, Preferences, and if you never installed Bool tool add-ons, you don't go to Add-ons, you go into Get Extensions, locate the Bool tool. You can see it right here, but I have it installed. I need to update it only, but you should have the install button here, and then you can locate it in the add-ons and make sure the box is checked and it's enabled. And now let's hold Shift S, reset cursor to world origin, let's press Shift A, and we'll add a cube. Now let's press G then Z and move it up here, and let's tab into the edit mode, press S then Z and scale it up. And scale it on y-axis, so press S then Y and scale. And now we can tab out, press G then X and move it back here, somewhere here for example, and G then Z and move it higher up. And now I will hold Shift, select the vending machine and hit Ctrl and slash on a numpad. That will basically intersect these two and create two objects, with this object using it as a cutting tool basically. And now we'll select this, go into the modifiers, and make sure the Boolean is above the bevel, so you get that edge there as well. And let's do the same thing for the other object as well. And now let's go to the render settings, switch to cycles. I will enable GPU denoising and use GPU for the render denoising as well. Let's hit 0 on a numpad for a camera view and press Ctrl B and limit the preview only to camera bounds. And now we can press Shift A and let's add a light and area light and press G then Z and move it up. Let's scale it up a little bit and now we'll switch this to disk. And now press period on a keyboard and switch back to 3D cursor, or again you can do it right here and press R then X and 30 to rotate 30 degrees, and let's hit minus to go to the other side. Now let's confirm, and now we'll increase the power to something like 500, hit Z and switch to rendered preview. So this is what you should get there. And now I will look for some nice light angle, so press R then Z and rotate it inside, and I want something like this from the back, and press G then Z twice to move it away a little bit, because here I will use different lighting in the front. And since this will be a night scene, let's make it blue. And I will select the background. Let's create a new material there. Let's call it BG for background. And let's make it dark and full roughness like this. And now let's select the panel in the front and we'll create the glass material. And let's increase the transmission all the way to 1 and reduce the roughness to something really small. And you can see already the cans showing through, but we'll need to introduce some light inside. So press H to hide, and let's press Shift A and add a point light here. Now let's look from the front by pressing 1 on a numpad, and we can enable wireframe view here, and press G then Z and move it up here so it's above the top shelf. So if you look here, it should look like this. And then let's go back to the front view and back to the wireframe, and we can press Alt D and Z to duplicate this like this, and then press Shift R twice, but it might not be enough, so you might need to move this under the shelf here. And since we used Alt D, now if you modify one of those lights, all of them will get modified, so we can create some backlight here. Let's do something stronger like 50, maybe even more, maybe something like 100. And here we can choose something like a green color. And now if we press Alt H, the glass comes back and we can play with the roughness. So you can really see how you can kind of blur the content of this. And as you go lower with the roughness, it gets more and more visible. But I think somewhere here will be fine, because from afar this will look quite detailed and you don't actually need to model the content of the vending machine too much, but it will has its depth. It will look as there's something in there, but you don't necessarily need to recognize all the details. So for example, if you do this as a part of a larger diorama or illustration or something, it will look like an interesting detail, even though you kind of just created one simple object and duplicated it all over the place. So that's the lighting there. Now I will tab into the edit mode here, Alt Shift S and snap cursor to select it. Now tab out and let's press Shift A and we'll add another area light there. Let's press R, then Y and -90 to rotate -90 degrees. Let's confirm. And now let's press G, then X and move it outside here. We can check it from the side view there, how far it is from the window. And now let's look from the side by pressing 3 on a numpad, and we can switch this to rectangle and basically adjust the shape. And here we'll use it to shine some light on the outside here, because the point lights inside don't get through that transmission glass panel very well. So if you want additional lighting, it's better to use additional area light on the outside. And then basically the inner point lights are just to define how the vending machine lighting looks, and then you have the area light to influence your surroundings. So let's do something like 50 here, or maybe even 150. And let's do a greenish light here as well, so it matches the content. And now you can see how you can shine the light in front without actually overblowing the inside point lights. So, but we can definitely go a little bit higher on those, something like 200. And additionally play with the color a little bit. Okay, now let's select the neons and we'll create an emission lighting. So let's switch to emission. And let's do something like 5. I don't want to overblow this as well. And let's do green light. If you go too high on the strength of the emission, you will start to lose details here. So if you, for example, need an emission to shine a light on your surroundings, it will be better to just add, for example, point light in front of it to actually simulate the light is shining on its surroundings while keeping the definition here. So it's a similar example as here. Now let's select the air, and here I will create another emission shader and do like 10. And here, for example, if I go back to solid view, we might need to bevel this a little bit. So if you go to the object settings, we can do a bevel on this as well. And we can set the extrude to 0 like this. Okay. And I think this can be a little bit blue. Maybe 5 will be enough here as well. But again, if you want like a stronger light there, you can just place the point light behind it and make it blue. And you will get much more of that light reflection and actually don't lose the color on the emissive object itself. So yeah, I think this looks nice. It's starting to come together. Now here for the buttons, I want the blue, and here on the display, let's do that green, and let's create a metal material for the vending machine. So let's go all the way to 1 with metallic, and let's reduce the value a little bit like this, and here we can do something like a dark blue. Okay, and here let's actually add a bevel modifier here as well. So hold shift, select something that has bevel on it, and just copy to select it. And here we can make this metal as well. And for the cable, I will just create a dark material with low roughness so we get some reflections there. And let's do metal material for the pipes and for the sign as well. And here we can do that blue light. Now we'll introduce some more lighting here. So let's hold Shift S, reset cursor to world origin. And don't forget to save your project. And let's press Shift A and we'll add an area light. Press G and Z, move it up. And let's move it behind. So press 7 on a numpad and press G and move it somewhere here. Let's make it a little bit larger and switch to disk. Now I want to do something like 500 there and change the color to something greenish as well. So we get a nice backlight here. Something like that. Maybe even stronger. Something like 1K. Okay, and now select the ground. And let's make it a little bit darker. I think the roughness can stay around 0.5. I think it looks quite okay. And now let's press Shift A. Let's add another area light. Press G then Z, move it up. And then move it to the side here. And this will kind of simulate like a street lamp or something. So we can do, for example, 250 here. And let's make it warmer. And I think maybe it's too strong. So let's do something like 150. And then play with the position. It doesn't need to be all the way to the side. We're just looking at some additional reflections here. And now in the world settings, we can increase the world brightness and change the color a little bit to kind of colorize everything. Something like that. And now for the final effect, we can press Shift A, we can add a cube, tap into the edit mode and just scale it up like this. So it kind of wraps our whole scene. Press G then Z, move it up. We can make it even larger. Tab out and let's add a new material to it. And there'll be the fog, so we can rewrite it here. And let's remove the principled shader for the surface, and for the volume, we'll add principled volume and reduce the density to something really low, like 0.015. And you can see you get this nice fog. And of course, you can make it stronger if you want, but be careful with this. So yeah, something like 0.02 will be just fine. Now here, I don't like this light dispersion, so you can select the light, go to the object settings, and in the visibility, disable the volume scatter. So it will affect your scene, but it will not scatter in the fog there. Okay, really like it. Now here we can move this to the front a little bit, and maybe make it a little bit stronger. So let's try 300 here, and here we'll disable the volume scatter as well. We don't want to influence it, the fog. And the fog itself, if you select the object, its color can be modified as well. So you can further, influence the ambience by colorizing the fog. Like this, and then in the render settings, go to color management, and let's switch this to higher contrast setting, and let's play with the exposure. Okay, and I think we can increase the roughness here on the ground and make it even darker. And when you're satisfied, just go to render settings, change your samples to something more manageable like 512, and hit render and render image. So yeah, that's it for today's illustration tutorial. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and again, if you did, please leave that like. And if you're new around here and want to learn more like this, hit that subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.